Okay, hey everyone, it's Ben here from rareliquid, and today we're going to be going over Excel shortcuts and best practices for finance, modeling, and business. And I'm just going to delete these rows right here. And so a lot of you guys have been requesting from all my modeling videos for me to make like an Excel shortcut video. So basically what we're going to do is go from this blank Excel spreadsheet to, I don't know if we're going to make all of this, but something that looks like this, something like a model. I'm sure a lot of the stuff we'll go through will be helpful regardless of what you do in business. And I will link these files to the description down below so you can follow along if you want. So be sure to download that if you want to follow along as I do everything. And I am going to go a little bit fast just so I can go through a lot of Excel kind of shortcuts with all of you. And you can see my keyboard down below as well as while I'm modeling, because I kind of wanted to show you guys that as well, actually. And that's why my phone is up here. I realized I didn't turn on the video yet. So let me turn this on real quick. Okay, so we're good to go. And before I get started though, one thing I did want to mention is just our sponsor for today's video, Wall Street Prep. And I thought they would be a super helpful kind of resource for a lot of you interested, especially in finance and in modeling, because they've been around since 2004, helping over 200 plus clients. They've been training a lot of the top investment banking a lot of the top investment banks since 2004. And what they really specialize are on courses that where you can kind of teach yourself. So they have this financial modeling package, which I'll go through a little bit later, but I highly recommend this one if you want to learn more about what bankers do or you want to just get better at modeling. And there's actually an Excel course, which I also recommend if you kind of want to learn more about Excel after this video. Because I'm definitely I won't be able to go through everything. And if you use my code rareliquid, then you get 20% off. And yeah, it's only 39 bucks, pretty affordable, and you'll go through a lot of the stuff we go through today and a lot more. And going through the financial modeling course, which is $4.99, but if you use my code rareliquid, you get 20% off. You learn about financial statement modeling, DCF modeling, M&A modeling, trading, transaction costs, LBO, basically everything I learned when I was an analyst at JP Morgan. And if you want a little bit more reassurance as to Wall Street Prep, if you've never heard of him, Andrew Federico, he was actually my class, he was in my analyst class at JP Morgan. And if you work at JPM at a bank and then your salary usually is pretty high. So this just kind of shows a small example to show just how much they really care about talent and who they hire. And the last thing I wanted to also mention, I'll leave a link to this down below, but they actually have 100 plus Excel shortcuts for both Windows and Mac. Today, I'm going to be basically showing a lot of the shortcuts primarily for the Mac, because there's just a lot more you can do with Excel on the Mac or on the Windows versus the Mac. And so that's where we're going to be going over today. And as I mentioned, we're going to start off with this blank spreadsheet here. And we're going to go through, we're going to try to make something like this. So the first thing you need to do when you're modeling is get your data, right? And right now, the way I'm going through all these paths is control and then page up or page down. And what I'm going to do is copy these two sheets into my other one, right? So what I'm going to do is control, shift, and then page down. You can see down here that it highlights these two. And then Alt-E-N will allow you to, and then if you press Shift Tab, then it allows you to copy these into the recent book that I just created, right? So I'm going down through these with the arrow keys, and if you press Shift Space, it creates a copy. And so all of this data is now copy pasted into our new sheet here. And Alt-H-O-R, that's going to allow me to adjust my sheet name. So I'll call this DCF. And now we're pretty much good to go, right? And so I'm going to go through tips that are a little bit more advanced-ish, because I'm not going to teach things like, copy paste and moving around arrow keys, because hopefully you guys know that with like your computer usage. Let me know if there's any questions in the comments though, and then I'll be happy to answer as many as I can. So let me zoom in first, and to do that, it's Control Alt plus, and I'm just doing that so I can make sure you guys can see everything. And then page down, Control page down allows me to go over here, right? And I'm going to be actually going back and forth through the Amazon DCF and this a little bit so we can kind of see what it looks like. And also I kind of need to remind myself what exactly we're building, right? So to start off, Alt-Tab is just to go to different Excel sheets or different programs you have up as you're going through. This can also work for like Chrome or whatever, right? Alt tab into like Chrome. So that's that one. And then, all right, so starting off with the title. Shift down allows you to highlight all the rows. And then Alt HBO gives you a bottom border here. And usually when you're modeling or just in general for Excel, not having these grid lines makes everything look a lot cleaner. So what you do to remove the grid lines is Alt W V G, and then they'll disappear. And so I'm going to write here Amazon VCF. And to make the font size bigger, it's Alt HFS, then 16, or whatever number you want. Control B is to bold it. And then I want to make this row or column smaller, right? So that's Alt HB, oops, Alt HOW. A lot of times I do this. It's kind of like when you learn piano, you just do it without thinking. And so it's new for me to actually go through every single one. So bear with me if I say some things, but I'm also going to be leaving the text down below as you watch this video for each one. So the text of what the shortcuts are. So hopefully that helps. So the reason that you make this a little bit smaller usually is just that it kind of looks nicer. And later on, I'm going to have these X's so that I can kind of go in between the important sections quickly. You'll see that later. But the first one here that usually I put is the ticker. And then I'll have the date, right? And let's say I have an Excel that I'm kind of copying from. Then obviously what's easiest if you just control paste, right? But if you want something like this and you're starting from scratch, then to make like a highlight on the cell is Alt HH. And then through the keyboard, the different arrow keys, you can make it a certain color. And then Alt HB Y will get you a certain style, and then you can click your arrow key for whichever one you want. And then like all these things pop up where it makes you like click it with your mouse, but obviously that's inefficient. So after you adjusted that setting, you can press any of these. So you see how all of these like letters pop up, right? And that's your kind of like shortcut. It's a shortcut basically. So Alt BHS, right? That does it for everything outside the border. But let's say if I did Alt HB, like let's say N, that actually that gets rid of borders. And then Alt HBS again will add the borders. So today's date 6/22/22, and that's kind of just the beginning. And now we're gonna kind of go through and make this section out, the assumptions section, right? So for this, just write assumptions, and we're gonna just highlight everything by pressing Shift down and then the right arrow key, and then Alt HH, which we went through earlier, and then just choose the color you want. And then to change the color of the font is Alt HFC. And you can also see up here, right? All of these things come up. When you press Alt, that shows all of the different pages. And then if you press the letter for H for home, for instance, then all these other ones come up. So that's how you can get faster, is just by kind of looking at these all the time, seeing what you use, and then just kind of memorizing them. And over time, it should help. And then we have our assumptions. And let's say you want to look aesthetic for whatever reason. You want to decrease this row size. Alt HOH. That gets you to your row height. And then let's say we make this something like 5. This is just a stylistic thing, definitely not needed if you don't want. And then you can see here we have like our different switches, valuation assumptions, etc. I'm going to copy paste these in because this is a video about shortcuts, not really about modeling itself. But I'll leave a link to the actual models I built in real time down in the description below, so you can kind of look at those as well. And now we're going to copy paste these in since we already built it. So you always want to take whatever shortcuts you can get whenever you are modeling. And so that's what we're going to do here. So let's just get all of these. So pretty much since I've already showed you all of these, I'm just going to copy paste these over here. And I'm going to delete all these. But one thing that I do want to show you is that if I add a number here, you see it's like 2, 4, 3, etc. That's because I copy pasted from Amazon here, which just gives general number formatting up here, as you can see. But here you can see that it's 3%, right? They're all percentages, and that's because of the way I formatted it. So if you wanted to copy this format into this one, like make this a percentage basically, and you wanted the shortcut for that, it's Control Copy. Then you go to the cell you want to copy it to, and then Alt EST, and that gets you to your format. And that'll change that to that. And then if you want to copy paste this down across, then you can again do Alt EST and enter. So that just pretty much copies everything and then makes your life a whole lot easier. If you want to add periods or decrease periods, the shortcut is Control dot or Control period. And then if you want to add decimals, it's Control comma, like that. Right? Okay. So I'm deleting all these by pressing Control Shift and then the down arrow key. Really can see with the keys on the keyboard. And then for these, actually, while these are percentages, I actually don't want that because these are switches. And so what I actually want these to just be regular numbers. So to do that, it would be Alt H N, then the down arrow key, and then general. So we're going to actually switch back to that. I'm going to decrease the decimal points by pressing Alt period or Control period. And then I want these to be, let's say, 1. And then I can just, these are all switches, so, actually these are not switches. Okay, so now we have our different like switches and all that. So we built out this one section. And I'm gonna put an X here in order to, you'll see why later. And I wanna make this aligned in the middle. So I'm gonna press Alt H-A-C, and that will allow me to center everything. So if I wanna highlight the entire column, it's Control spacebar. If I wanted to center everything, Alt H-A-C, but I don't want to do that, so I'm pressing Control Z to undo. And so if I wanted to delete this row, let's say, oh, I built this out, I actually don't like it, it's Shift down space and then Alt HDR. That's something there. And as I mentioned before, once you have something built out, you want to be efficient and then copy paste across. So you can either press the Shift down key or Shift and then space key in order to copy the entire row. And then if you press the Shift down key again and then Control paste, then it gets you to your entire, or it copies paste everything in the entire row. Okay, so now what we're going to build out is our income statement. And you can actually see here, so if you want to get the entire column, it's Control spacebar. And then if you move this across with the arrow key, then you can kind of get the other columns. And to unhide these, I don't know what this key is down here next to your Control key on the right hand side. I don't know exactly what it's called. But if you highlight, you can see that the columns here are hidden, right? There's like it goes D to K instead of D to E. So to unhide it, what I do is I press this key and then I press the U button, which is for unhide. Okay, so then it unhides everything, and this is basically what we're going to build out, or basically just like kind of copy. So we have income statement and all the years. So I'll go to my income statement, and then we started with the year 2013. I'm going to go back and copy the formatting again. What Alt EST does is get you to this paste special thing. So there's a lot of stuff you can do here, but basically we're just going to go with the formatting one for today. I'll probably make other Excel related videos in the future if this one, is pretty interesting to all of you, and hopefully I can go through more with whatever maybe I don't cover today. And so we have revenue, percent growth, percentage of sale, all this stuff. This is like, I'm just going to copy paste this in. And what I want to show you next is we have all of these figures that we got from basically our other sheet here, right? So to show you guys how to do that, you just press equals and then Control page down, and then you go to whatever, with the arrow key, you go to wherever cell you need to get that information from. So here it's calendar year 2013. And so as you can see, if you go Control page down, you can see that here is the 2013 figure, right? So then this makes it really nice because then you can just Control paste this across for as much data that actually pops up, or as much data as you have. So in our case, this goes out all the way to 2027. So we're going to go all the way out to 2027. And when this number thing comes up, when you have when it's taking up too much space. And so to auto fit that column, it's Alt-HOI. But when you're modeling, best practice is actually to keep all of these columns the same size. So if you want to do that, press Control Space and then Shift right arrow key or whatever arrow key, it could be left arrow key, and then Alt-HOW will get you to your column width. And let's say I want to make it 11. Okay, so that's too big. Make it something like 8. That's too small, so 9. Okay, so we'll have something like this. And then if you want to make the growth rate, then Alt equals that cell. And the whole purpose of using equals instead of is just to save time, because you could also actually, I don't think it works with your mouse. Well, I guess you could like click it like this, right? But that's really inefficient, right? It's that versus just using your arrow keys. It's a lot faster. So the entire purpose of today's video is obviously to help you get faster in Excel, and you can definitely do that by just using your arrow keys more and stuff like that instead of using your mouse. And what we're doing here is getting the growth rate. So we're doing equals our current year divided by our previous year minus 1. That's just a formula. And then to quickly make this into a percentage, it's Alt-H-P, right? And then you can add decimal points based on the shortcut we went over earlier. And then you can just copy paste this across. And this F2 thing that I do often in my modeling, and you guys may have seen it before, allows you to check what's really happening with the cells that you're looking at in that current cell that you're in. So this is why actually, if you see over on my keyboard, the F1 key is gone, because if you press it, this help button pops up. So you'll know that if you ever go into a home and you don't see an F1 key, you know that person's in finance, or they use Excel just a ton, because you end up, if this key is here, you end up always pressing it. So that's why it's always gone for me. So next, really simple one, if you want to italicize this, because usually it's good to do that for kind of like percentages if you have numbers above, is just to press Control I. And then for these, this is not a necessity, but when you're linking to another cell, it's good to color code, because then someone, when they look at your model, they know exactly what's happening if you're in the same if you're using the same color code, which is what we used to do at JP Morgan. But for example, at JP Morgan, if we link to another sheet like we did to our income statement, then what we would always do is make that color green. So to make that green, Alt-HFC, which we went over before, and let's say I want to make this green, this color green. So that's what you do there, Alt-HFC, and then we just continue doing the same thing. So EBIT, operating income. I'm going to control paste this across, and then control copy by, I'm doing control shift right arrow key and then copy, and then going down with my arrow key, Alt EST, which we went over, and that goes and that gives you the same formatting as above. So that way you don't have to do like Alt HFC and go through these arrow keys again and stuff. So that's why it's helpful. Once you format one thing somewhere, you can always use Alt EST in order to make it the same format. So for example, again, I think although these are the same kind of tips I'm giving you guys, I think it's helpful to repeat over and over, since a lot of this might be your first time. So Alt EST again. So now this is all good, right? And now we have our margins. And then we'll get our taxes, which are down here. And I'm going to kind of like go through this a little bit more quickly because we went over all these shortcuts already. And another thing you can do is, I went over, oops, I showed you guys one row, right? But you can actually do it for both at the same time. So let me show you that. So if you press Shift down arrow key, and then you press Control, and then the right arrow key, and then press Copy, and then then you press the arrow key down a few times, Alt EST, Enter. It copy pastes both of these rows. So I'm going to do that again, since this one's a little bit tricky. So first one is Shift down, and then Control right key, and then Control copy. And then you go to the cell where you want to go to. As you can see, my hands are off my keyboard. Then Alt EST. So that's helpful if you have like exactly the same number of cells that you want to copy the formatting to. So that's what you do there. Cash flow items here. I guess just for repetition's sake, I can go over this. But let's see, cash flow items. I'm gonna copy. Actually, here. I think it'd be better if I just copy this. So again, shift space bar for the row, copy, and then go down with your arrow key, and then shift space bar again, and then control paste. That copies everything. Okay, so cash flow items, we have our DNA, CapEx, change in net working capital, all this stuff. We'll copy that. And then we have like all these figures that we're going to need to add. Right, so this is again more repetition, so I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. So depreciation amortization is here. We want to get it started 2013. So, and we're not going to have this for all the years. So as you can see, these are 0 because these lead to cells that are blank. So we want to delete these. Get to your cell, press shift, and then right arrow key here. That's what I'm doing. And then you can press the delete button. And so here we want percentage of sales, right? So I'm pressing equals, getting to our DNA, dividing by our revenue, and that gets us to our percentage. And again, Alt HP, that gets your percentage. CapEx, control, page down button. We're at a cash flow statement. Plant, properties, and equipment. 2013 is where we're starting. And then control paste, right? And then we're viewing this as a percentage of sales. And let me actually show you guys one thing. So right now you saw that these two are both percentage of sales, right? And I kind of had to go here and then, press control to go up to my sales. And by the way, that control button when you're using your arrow key basically gets you to the next cell and skips these empty cells. Otherwise, if I were to go here and then, keep the arrow key and hold it up, it does go up, but it's slower. It might seem like not a huge difference, but when you have a huge Excel sheet, it makes a big difference. And then, so you can see that it's the same thing that you're doing. And what I want to do is show you guys how you can just copy paste this easily. So with what I'm about to show you is called anchoring, and it's with the F4 button. So if you can look up here, then unfortunately I can't zoom into it that much, but you can see that these dollar signs show up whenever I press F4, right? And so when I press F4 the first time, it copies that cell only. So for example, if I copy paste this across, you'll see that it always only is getting my revenue figure for that year and then dividing by the first year's revenue of 2013, which obviously I don't want. I want it to be 2014 divided by 2014, 2015 divided by 2015, right? So you press F4 again, and that'll anchor the row. So you can see it's in front of the 20, right? And this is in row 20. And that way, when you copy paste this across, this will maintain anchoring the row. So what that means is when I copy paste this down, it'll anchor the row. But you can see that this, now it's getting the what's right above and then dividing by that. But that is kind of what I wanted to show you here because that's exactly what we want, right? We want to get our immediately cell above and then divide by our revenue. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we want, what we want here. And then change in net working capital. Let's get that from our cash flow statement again. Changes in operating assets and liabilities. And then, so here we can just copy paste this again. See? So this gets us by our revenue, divides by revenue. So this is a really, really important shortcut. These like two that I showed you with the anchoring and all that you want to know. One last thing I'll mention here is that if you press F4 one more time, it anchors to the column, right? So this means when you copy paste this across, it anchors to the column there. And then if you copy paste this down, and then you do that, you can see that it stays to that column, right? But if so then that's obviously not what we want. And you can see that it also came down by a row, but it sticks in that column versus up here while it's here and it stays in that column. So that one will take a little bit of tinkering around for you to understand that one. But that is F4 basically is a very important thing to know. So what we're going to do here is DNA divided by CapEx using my arrow keys again. And then for this, we want to change in sales. So we're getting, this is just a formula that I'm not going to go over. But again, this is just about Excel stuff. But you can see as I go through all these, I'm never touching my mouse. And that's the point where you eventually want to be, right? And then, these you want to italicize, like I mentioned before. And you can just Alt-EFT again. All right, so now we have our cash flow items. Now I'm going to show you guys the DCF part. All right, so now we have our DCF here, right? And a lot of these that I'm about to show you are going to be actually pretty similar. And so what I'm doing here, so I'm going to copy paste these down, or these into my current Excel. So we have our revenue and percent growth and all that. And what we're going to do is link to all the items that we have up here so that we can actually build out our DCF. So I'm pressing Control and up arrow key, and then I'm copy pasting this across. And you can see that this is all correct with F2. It's always good to press F2 and check to make sure you're doing everything correctly. Control Shift right arrow key, Alt H FC, and that you can change your color. When you're linking to the same sheet, the best practice at JP Morgan was to make it purple. And then I'm gonna make these into percentages again. By the way, one thing that also helps with time is to make one cell perfect, I guess, in whatever format you want. And that way, when you copy paste it across, you can see it's like the same. Versus if I did this and I copy pasted it, then I have to go and do Alt-EST again, right? And then, so for our conservative case, we can use what we have here. Again, kind of just like shortcut because you want to be efficient. And that way you have like all these things. And so one other thing you can do in order to save time if you're like building this, if I was like building this DCF, I know that I'm going to be going back to that, to whatever's up there and formatting in the same way, right? So what you can do is actually you can press Shift and use your arrow keys in order to get whatever parts you want, and then Control copy all of this, and then go to the cell where you want to start the formatting to be the same, and then press Alt-EST, and then now all of these are going to be the same as what you need. So you can see these are percentages, etc. I didn't format this first one, that's why it's like that, because obviously there's a blank cell here. Okay, so then now I'm going to go into our EBIT, get our EBIT. No, that one is not formatted. No, I guess this didn't copy correctly. Let me try this again. So again, this is formatting, and this should work now. Yeah, so you can see the alt. Oh, it's because I'm in my EBIT line, sorry. Let me delete this. Okay, let me do that again. Oh, actually, what I initially had was correct. Okay, so my bad on that. Let me go back to my EBIT. Okay, so this is correct, and then now we get a margin, and then we can copy paste this. And then taxes, we'll do the same thing. So hopefully, if you are following along, this is all starting to feel like practice. And if you ever do anything incorrect in terms of formatting, what everyone kind of does is just control an empty cell and then control paste, and that allows you to just get rid of the formatting completely and make it a white cell. And then we'll make this a percentage of EBIT. Again, what I'm doing is equals, getting my up arrow key, dividing by our EBIT. And I guess I did not copy paste this. So what I'm doing again is Shift down arrow key a few times, and then using my right arrow key. And then I get to the cell that I want, Alt-EST. Okay, and then I control paste this across. Now we have pretty much most of what we need. I'm gonna actually copy paste our assumptions here. And these are linked to different cells, right? Or these, you can see that these are purple. They're linked to cells that are already in the document up here. So, but what I want to do is actually copy values because I'm showing you guys just what this looks like from without actually building the model. So what I want to do is I want to copy paste these into my other model. So I'm pressing Control Shift, right arrow key, down arrow key, Control Copy, Alt Tab, and then I go to the cell where I want to paste the values. So I press Alt ES, and now instead of pressing Format, I want the values. So I want just the numbers, right? So then I'm pressing V, enter, and that gets us to the values that we want. So what this means is you can see up here, these are just figures. These are exactly what these percentages are, but these numbers are being calculated based off of our assumptions in the model, right? So this is it's pretty different. So if I were to copy paste this, for example, it shows you numbers that are just incorrect or different because these are actually going through the parts of this current sheet in my Excel versus I want just the values in here. So again, that's Control or Alt ESV, right? And I want to make this dynamic, and so the formula I'm going to use is equals offset. And I'm not going to go through this too much because this is more about not about formulas, but maybe that could be a future video. The current cell that I'm on, and this is revenue growth. So I'm going to go to my revenue growth switch, oops, and then press 0, 0. And that'll make the model dynamic. And I realized, so this is an example of why you need to anchor, which is what we went through earlier. So to show you guys what I mean, this right now is pulling from here when I want to pull it from here. And that's why you need to anchor it only to the cell. So to do that, press F2, and then you go to the cell that you want to anchor with your arrow keys here on my keyboard. If you press F4, that'll always make it anchor to that switch. Oh, I did it to the wrong one, sorry. It's actually E9. So when I control paste this across, now you can see that it's doing exactly what I wanted to, which is to be anchored to this cell over here. So that way, whenever I change this, let me actually, so another shortcut I'll show you guys after, or right now as I am trying to show you guys something else, is if you press Shift and then the space bar, and you want to hide these, and I'm doing that in order to show you how this works, Alt-A-G-G, this groups this into something you can either use your mouse key to either like hide or unhide, or you can press this button and then press H. Sorry, I really should know what that key is called. I have no idea what it's called. But anyway, you can see that the revenue growth figure, now these numbers on the bottom right here, they're changing, right, based on our number of rows. Because that's what the offset does. Because if I press 4, then it actually is grabbing numbers from here. But if I press 2, it's grabbing the numbers from here. That's what that is. I realize it's already 30 minutes, so I'm actually not going to go through everything here because otherwise this video is going to just take forever. So I'll make a future video, but I'll just go through the rest of this section. So I'm pressing Control Shift, right arrow key down, Control period to get rid of the extra decimal because I want everything to be consistent. I can either make everything one extra decimal point, or I can make it 0. That's what you normally want to do. And then if I do that times 1 plus our revenue growth, then this gets you to your revenue. And to make this color-coded correctly, whenever you calculate anything, you want it to be a black color. So that's what we're doing here. And just to show you again, if I change this switch, you can see our revenue will change. And so eventually, what we are building towards is like a share price with our DCF. And so you can then see, oh, if I change this assumption, then our share price will change to something else. So to show you what that looks like in an actual model, you can see our implied share price is kind of linked. So if I change this, you can kind of just like see how the implied share price changes, and then you can kind of like invest based on what you believe is true. All right, so let me just go through that, what I just did a few more times just with these rest of these examples so that everything is crystal clear. So I'll go Alt-Tab, use my down arrow key to get to where I need to, which is here. Control Shift down. So I've gotten the cells in that column that I need from this section. Right arrow key, then Control Copy. Go to my other tab, press Alt ESV, and that gets your assumptions all here in values. And then if you press Control period, Control I for the italicized, Alt HAR for to align them to the right. That's what I'm doing there. And then I'll show you guys offset again. You're referencing this cell and you're asking with this formula, how many rows do I want to go down? And we have our EBIT margin switch here. You want to anchor it by pressing F4. Then you don't want it to go any columns to the right or left, so you press 0, press equal, and then you have your thing here. And if you and what we want to do here is multiply by our revenue. And changing this color to black. So now we have this one all set up. We're going to do the exact same thing again for taxes. Go to our taxes, Control, Shift, down, and then Control Copy. Go to the cell we want to start at, Alt ESB, that can start values. And then I'm going to copy paste this. So I did this by Control Shift, right arrow key, down arrow key. But once you get fast, it's really fast. It's like that, right? And that's how you get really fast in Genki. So again, just to show you in real time how I would do it, it's probably something similar to this. Oops. Yeah. All right. So then now we're going to do the same thing. Offset, reference the current cell, and then go to our taxes switch. And the way I kind of like went through everything quickly there is goes equals offset, and then Control, and you just press your arrow key. And this is where I mentioned before, right? If you do use your Control key, it's much faster than going like this. And I'm using like the top right arrow key to get there even faster. And then I'll get to my taxes. Sorry, I realized I have to go to the cell first, then press comma. Use my arrow key to get to taxes, F4, comma, 0. Copy paste this across, and then multiply this by our EBIT. Alt HFC. All right, so there we have these figures. All right, so I'm actually not going to go through much or anything more because they're actually it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. So yeah, so at least you can get to this point. If you're totally new to Excel, and you can get to this point and get pretty quick, you'll already be this is like a lot of what you kind of already need to know. And again, I will leave kind of like these figures here in an Excel down in the description so that you can follow along. So if you just have an empty Excel sheet, you can make something like this. And if you just practice this, a few times, you'll get really, really fast. If you want to learn even more, again, I wanted to remind you guys that I'll leave a link to this. Wall Street Prep has 100+ shortcuts you need to know for finance, business, banking, etc. I actually oftentimes also when I forget something, I just Google it. So if I want to look something like Excel shortcut zoom in, right? I literally did this before the video because I forgot how to do this. You press Control Alt plus or minus. So then you go to Excel, Control Alt plus minus. You can actually you can learn by doing that too. And yeah, so Wall Street Prep is the sponsor for today's video. Just wanted to give you a friendly reminder. They have an Excel shortcut course, which I highly recommend if you want to take your Excel course to the next level. There's 8 hours of training in there. We only went through like 30 minutes. If you use my code rareliquid, you get 20% off, and it's only 39 bucks, so it's really cheap. If you really want to get better at Excel, it's important to your job or whatever, or what you're recruiting for, I think it's super a good idea to kind of go through this course. If you want to get better at modeling, I do recommend their kind of like most popular course, which is the premium package financial modeling course. So yeah, hope you guys found this helpful. Let me know what other type of Excel stuff you guys think might be helpful as you guys are trying to learn through all of this. And I'll definitely try to make more Excel videos in the future if this one is has a good response or is like something you guys all want. So with that said, hope this was a helpful video. Hope to catch you in the next one. Thanks so much all, and peace out.